Well, hi, you guys. Hey, I'm Ronnie Walter, and we're going to do a really fun watercolor and line tutorial today. If you haven't been here, welcome. This is a really fun channel, if I do say so myself. And what we do is some fun and cute and lighthearted artwork, and today is no exception. Today's little design is this very cute autumnal kitty in a pumpkin. I mean, can it get any cuter than that? If you are interested, there is a traceable template for you to download. That's right in the description of this video, just down below. And thank you for being here. We have a really good time here. I try to make it as easy and accessible as possible because I want all of us to just do cute, fun, lighthearted pictures. That's my whole goal. So let's get started. Okay, let's go through what I've got here. I did a super quick sketch of this cute kitty sitting in a pumpkin. It's very simple lines, but if you're not comfortable drawing it on your own, no worries. There is a traceable template for you to just trace it and go, and you can make it your own. You know, here's the thing. You can, if you use my template, it's still not going to look exactly like mine. It's going to look like yours, and that is the beauty of this. And as always, when we get started, we are kind to ourselves as we go through this process, and that's what I plan on doing today, and I hope you do too, because you're worth it. Okay, so what I did was, so I did this really quick pencil sketch, of which there'll be a tidier one for you to work off of. And then just using my little light box, I put the minimum indicators of pencil on here so that I don't have to erase that much, but I know where I'm going with this. Now, in this project, I'm going to start with the line work because I think it's going to be really cute, and then we're going to paint afterwards. So with my line work, I'm going to use this Staedtler Pigment Liner 0.1, and that is waterproof, very important. And you should test these. I just bought one. I can't remember what brand it was. I bought it from an art store. It said waterproof on it. I drew this darling drawing and put watercolor on top, and it all bled. So I returned it. Okay, anyway, very important. Test them first. The ones that I normally use, I know for sure are waterproof. The Micron, which is the standard, these are easy to come by. They're at most craft stores. They come in different weights. All of these come in different weights. What's the other brand that I have? This Faber-Castell Pitt artist pen. I know for sure that these are all waterproof. The other one I bought, no. I wish I remember what the brand was, but I don't remember, but it was not good. Anyway, we're going to put those two back into the jar of markers, but we're going to work with this one today. I have two brushes. These are both Princeton Velvet Touch. These are my newest brushes. These are rounds, a 10 and a 6. I think that's going to do me for this. And today, just for fun and to prove that you don't have to have super expensive materials, I'm using this Prang set of 16. They're student grade. They're not archival quality, but frankly, this little cat in a pumpkin is not going to last for generations. And so it's got a really nice range of colors. We're not going to use all of them today, but I like these. And they're kind of my go-to set for just goofing around. And today, we're kind of goofing around. So I also have some paper towels. And I have 2 jars of water. I'm going to send the camera over here so you can see them. Okay, there's 2 jars of water. The big one I use to swish out my brush for cleaning, and the small one I use to get fresh color so that I try to keep them uncontaminated. The other thing I have is a big mug of tea. That probably looked huge in the camera. It's a reasonably sized cup of tea, and I always keep it to far enough away from my work that I don't swish my paint in it, but we've all done that. Okay. So I'm just going to start drawing right onto this watercolor paper. Put my glasses on, and as we've said, I'm going to get some stuff out of the way here so I don't knock into them and give myself a little elbow room. A loose but confident hand is good. You don't have to make solid marks. You can do an interrupted line if that's more comfortable with you, for you. And we're just going to go into this. So I'm going to start with this sunflower. I'm going to move our little sketchy sketch out of the way. Oh, I also have an extra piece of watercolor paper to test my colors when we get to that point. So I'm just going to go around this and make a cute little circle. I personally don't like a really super solid thick line. It looks too cartoony to me. I like kind of this loose casual look. And then I'm just going to start putting little petals on there and go all the way around. They don't have to match up to anything. And I'm, again, being loose, light, but confident in my marks. I just love making marks with a pen. I mean, it's just fun. Okay, and then I'm going to put a couple dots in there to indicate those seeds on sunflowers. I'm not drawing every individual seed. That will totally read as a sunflower. And then I'm going to put in some nice chunky leaves going around, put a vein in the middle. And this paper is, it's 4x6 for one thing, and it is Canson XL, so it's very reasonably priced. So this is a very reasonably priced project. You don't have to have the fanciest materials to make really adorable art. So now we're going to come down to these sunflowers. Same thing, I'm not making a solid line around there. Then I'm just going to start putting in those petals. And they can be a little bit wonky because we're artists, we're not machines. We're humans. We make wonky marks. If I wanted this to look like a real sunflower, I would take a picture of a sunflower, which are all blooming right now in my neck of the woods here in Wisconsin. Very nice. Okay, we're going to put our little dots in there. There's nothing more satisfying than making dots. All right, and then we're going to come in with the one behind, and I'm varying the sizes. This one got a little bit bigger, which is fine. That one petal got rather large, so we'll just go with that. We'll pretend like that was intentional. And you can make them kind of go a little bit different directions, because one of the things about sunflowers is when they blow in the autumn breeze, they go kind of different directions, which is always kind of cool. All right, we'll put our dots in. Dotting, dotting, dotting. Cute. Okay, so on this one, we're going to put, I want to kind of diffuse the edge of that pumpkin. So that's going to kind of come in here. And here. And you're just kind of making kind of chubby leaves. And to balance this, I think I'm going to put, I was going to put that, I think on my sketch. Yeah, on my sketch I had this leaf down here. I'm going to put it up here. You know, we just make decisions along the way. Nobody needs to know what we were intending to do. So on the sketch you can download, that leaf will be up there. Okay, cute, cute. All right, now we're going to start in our cat. So we're just going to do a little top of the head, the ear, coming down. Everything's really, really basic, really slight curves. To give them that little. And then these are their little paws. They're kind of funny little semicircles. You can make them as circly as you want. And then just for cuteness, we'll put some little fingers in there. And then we'll bring out our pumpkin. You can see how quickly this is coming together with its minimum lines with maximum cuteness, which is always what we're going for here. Maximum cuteness. Again, just a slight curve around the pumpkin. And then we're going to do some pumpkin lines. And you can use pencil for this. That's just fine. I like to start in the middle whenever I'm doing stripes or lines, and then working my way out. And I'm doing kind of a double line to give that rib of a pumpkin. And some of the funny little design things is you want to make sure, and this is where pencil comes in. You don't want a line coming like right off the edges of things. You know, you want to have them sort of balanced out. Sometimes they look too rigid if you get them in the wrong spot, but you'll know that from eyeballing it. Okay, there. Now, except for their adorable little face, so I'm going to just do a kind of a rounded triangle for its nose, cute little mouth, and a little secret on the cuteness scale. It's always cuter to do when you're doing your eyes to make them a little bit low and wide apart. And you'll see that better when I erase those. So there, we have a kitty in a pumpkin with sunflowers. And now I'm gonna let that dry for like 10 seconds, 15 maybe, and come back and erase, and then we're gonna start painting. Okay, I'll be back. I feel confident that this ink is completely dry. So I'm gonna come in with my kneaded eraser. And a kneaded eraser is really fun because you can knead it. And it doesn't leave shavings behind like on a regular eraser. So it's a little more gentle to the watercolor paper. You always want to use a light hand when you're erasing on your watercolor paper because you don't want to disturb that texture because it will be funky when you paint on top of something that you've roughed up the texture on. Okay, so you can see how his or her, their eyes are very well spaced. For some reason I keep getting more pencil in there. And I forgot the whiskers. So let's go back with our pen. Let's see a little pencil in there. So I'm just going to do, again, when I do stripes or something that I want to come out somewhat even, I start in the middle. So I'm going to do the first whisker and then come out on the other ones. There, that just cuted him up. Darling. Okay, and I left a little bit more space on the bottom of this than on the top. Two things. One is I can write a little, if I make this into a card, I can write a little message there. You know, happy fall, thinking of you. It can be more generic. It can be a thank you note. Or if I want, I can chop this off and make it more centered inside that space. Depends on what you want to do. Okay, so we're going to go into the watercolor. I'm going to move this cat out of the way because the first thing we want to do with our watercolors is use a spray bottle and spray down your paints just to get them activated. I don't know if I'm going to be using all these, but it doesn't hurt to have them all be activated. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. When you buy an inexpensive set of paints, it's probably going to come with a brush. I believe this is the brush that it came. Yes, this is the brush that came with. As you can see, this brush is garbage. I don't know why I'm even keeping it. I might use it for glue or something, but they're terrible. So if you're going to spend any money, if you just want to start with inexpensive paints, which is fine, and you want to paint on watercolor paper, even inexpensive, this Canson XL is very available and very fine for beginners. And I use it a lot. I'm not a beginner, but I use it a lot. You want to put this aside for either children or grandchildren or glue. But you want to get yourself a decent brush. Now, these brushes are, I think I paid for the large one about $13, and I think this smaller one was about $9. And you don't have to buy a lot of brushes. You could buy these two sizes, a 10 and a 6 in a round, and it will serve you for a very long time. You don't have to buy, in fact, I don't even like the whole sets of brushes because there's a whole bunch that you're just never going to use. So start here and buy them one brush at a time and buy one good brush at a time. Okay, there's Ronnie's advice for today. All right, now, here's the other thing with paint, with watercolor, is you don't want to go from the paint pot right to your paper. You're going to run out of water, you're going to run out of pigment, it's just not a good idea. So we always, this thing is not just the cover of this palette, it's also it's a palette. And so what we're going to do is we're going to mix our paints over here. And then we'll know that we've built a big enough puddle of paint to have enough to cover the real estate that we're looking for. Okay, having said that, let's go. The other thing is when you're painting in watercolor, I just noticed that's kind of crooked across there. That's all right. Okay, so is that you want to kind of plan out to paint so things don't run into each other that you don't want to have run into each other. So I'm going to start with the inside of the sunflowers, which is basically brown. But since we are using paint, we want to have some variations on the theme. So this is just their brown. And it's kind of not quite a burnt sienna. I don't even know what I would call this. It's a little funky. So I usually zhuzh it up, swish out in the big thing. I usually add a little orange to it. Do I like that better? Slightly. And I try really hard not to contaminate my paints. I try really hard. It does not mean it doesn't happen. So what I'm going to do is, because I want variations inside there, I'm going to give it a good chunk of the brown with a little orange in there, which I just contaminated the orange. Don't call the watercolor police on me. And I'm going to put it on the top of each of these centers. I'm just confidently putting it in there. Dab off my brush with the paper towel and hoover up a little bit because I just don't need that much paint on there, but I want it to soak in slightly so that it isn't just sitting on the surface. And then I'm going to come in and make this more orange just to give it some variety, because that's what makes watercolor so fun, is the variety inside each little piece. You may not see that on camera, but it just gives it a little bit extra. And why not add a little bit extra? I'm kind of hitting that orange a little heavier, and I'm going to put some more in there. We may come back later and give it a little more, but I just want to have a little variation inside there. Okay, so we don't want to do the yellow around there yet, because then it's all going to bleed together, which we don't want in this case. So I'm going to go in with the green and make the leaves. So again, I'm putting clean water. That'd help if I clean my brush. Tidy that up. And apparently, I haven't done this yet, but apparently you can clean these plastic palettes really well with one of those magic erasers. I haven't done it. You know, those things you clean your woodwork and things with. That you can get this back to almost pristine. But I usually tend to do the same colors in the same little wells. Okay, so there are 3 greens in this palette. And this is probably the brightest, because I'm going to want 2 greens. So I'm going to go heavy on this, test it over here. I want to make sure I have saturation. And the thing is, with less expensive paints, is you're going to need to use a little more paint to get the saturation that you want. And then this green is kind of a tealy color. It's really pretty. I want to see how they go together. And sometimes I'll mix something and I go, no, I don't really like that. Okay, I think that's too dull. So let's clean that back up again. I'm going to take all that out. Okay, we're going back to that bright, bright green, because this is pretty whimsical. And we might as well show you the 3rd green while we're here. The 3rd green is more of what we would call a Kelly green. It's a little bluer. That's pretty too. So we're gonna play around with these. I'm gonna take that out because that's not what I want right now. Okay, so back to our brightest green. Get ourselves a nice puddle of that with clean water. And again, enough saturation. Yes, I like that. Okay, so we're gonna go in. I'm gonna hit the tops of these leaves. And I like going over my line work just slightly. And we'll hit that here. You want to make sure you load up your brush to just make sure that you have enough to cover the space. Now these are pretty tiny spaces, but when you get into bigger spaces, you want to make sure you got stuff on your brush. I'm going to go back and hoover. And now I want some bleed from the bottom part of the leaf to the top part. So I am going to use that Kellyish green combined with that green. And where does that put us? I want it to be enough different, so let's add some saturation to that. I may be losing all of my brighter green, but that's a nice difference, I think. And that's a little bit thick. Okay. I know I'm still trying to work out like where my hand is versus where the palette is, so that you guys can see what I'm doing, and I'm not always successful at that, so I apologize for sometimes going out of the frame. Yeah, this is a nice difference. And I've probably talked long enough that these are drying, so they're not going to really bleed, which is fine either way. We're not worried about that. If there's some bleed, all the better. If not, we'll still love it. See, that one's bleeding a little bit, which I like. It's watercolor. It's supposed to do that. Otherwise, we'd work in acrylic, which I do in my big paintings, but I don't like acrylic for small things. Okay. Well, that turned out really cute. Okay. So we need to let this dry. Actually, there's two things I can do while this dries, and that is I'm going to do a little pink nose, and I'm going to do some little pink cheeks. So I want to make sure this brush is really clean because I'm going to go in. Oops. Dribbling on paper. Okay, I'm going to go in with there's two reds in here. One's a cooler red and one is a warmer red. We're going to go in with the cooler one and make that pretty transparent because I want to do just some really cute cheeks because, you know, of course a cat needs rosy cheeks. So I'm going to go in and do the nose. And then right here at the whiskers, I'm just going to add a little pink circle. That will not be outlined. It just adds, it just makes it look cuter. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I was teaching a watercolor workshop a few months ago and doing this kind of work, cute, whimsical watercolor. And after the class, we thought we should have put a hash mark on the board every time someone said the word cute. It was becoming hilarious, but it was so great because everybody was looking at other people's work and going, oh, that's so cute. Because that was our game. Our goal was to have it be cute. Now, I apparently blobbed a little watercolor in there. So this is the lesson. I took my clean brush and some clean water, and I'm scrubbing it just slightly. And scrubbing I'm just rubbing it back and forth, and I took, I'd say 90% of that off. I'm sure you can't see it, and whoever received this will not see it. So I fixed it. Okay, I think I am going to go in and do the cat. So the cat Now you can paint your cat any way you like. If you want to make it look like your own cat, I suggest practicing, just draw on scrap paper just the shape of the cat and work on how you would paint those markings. And maybe I'll do a video on how to draw, how to do a basic cat and how to make it look like your markings. Should I do that? Tell me in the comments. Okay, so this kitty is going to be a gray kitty. I love gray kitties. They always feel like, I don't know, are gray kitties the softest kitties? So I'm just going to go in and cut the corner off their head with a soft gray. And I think when you paint a black cats are kind of hard because are you going to end up diffusing their face? So using a dark gray will read as a black cat if you have an all black kitty. Now, did you just see what I did with this brush? This is the difference in a good brush. And I have kind of a funky tip on this one, but I was able, with the tip of now this is a big fat brush and it can hold a lot of paint, but with a good point, here, let me see if you can see this. I can make a super, super thin line with that. That's the beauty of a good brush. You will never get that with this garbage brush. Can you see the difference? Yeah, you would just be completely frustrated by this brush. So move it along. Okay, so we have that. I'm going to put some markings on the paws just because cats they have different markings. So I'm going to make that paw like that. And this paw, let's give it kind of a blobby top. Okay, that is super cute. All right. I think my green leaves are dry. So we're going to go in, I'm going to clean off that black from that section because I don't really need that anymore, but I'm going to need a lot of paint for the pumpkin. Now, in this palette, there are two oranges. There's kind of a, here, we'll look at this. There's kind of an orangey red, which I love. And then this is more of a blaze orange, like the hunters might wear, or highway workers. And so I'm going to blend those two because I want a strong pumpkin-y feel to it. But when it dries, I'm going to go back in and do some darker, probably add in some of that brown to give it a little shape. But first, we're just going to come in with the clean water. I'm giving it a fair amount of water because I do want to be able to, and this is going to need a fair amount of pigment. Yeah, don't skimp on the pigment and make yourself a big puddle. Sometimes I see artists have a little tiny puddle and they're trying to use the tip of their brush to move stuff around. No, you'll just be frustrated. Cleaning off my brush, going back to the Blaze Orange and coming back in and making a nice, strong pumpkin-y color. It needs more pigment. And I think I'm going to go in with this one. It's getting better. And then we'll add more of this one. Okay, that's feeling pumpkin. Okay, so I'm going to, see what I'm doing? I'm like pulling that up into the belly of the brush. Get some paint in there. You're not painting from the tip of your brush, you're painting from the whole brush. Okay, so I'm gonna move that out of the way a little bit. And I'm gonna come in, and this is basically a wash. This is as close as I'm gonna come to like teaching you watercolor. Otherwise, we're just making cute pictures. And I'm just gonna go in, and you can see I'm using sort of the side of the brush because I wanna cover space. You don't wanna try to be like doing in here. I mean, you wanna like make a statement. And you want to keep that paint moving. So you kind of go back and forth, grab more paint. In fact, I probably didn't make enough, but I think I got it. I'll be able to get enough going. Okay, So yes, I was able to cover the pumpkin. I am going to come back later and give that a little more presence. Okay, now it's time to do our yellow in the sunflower. So I'm going to take my number 6 round, and we are going to go in with this sunshiny yellow, which is a little too yellow for my taste. It's a little lemony. Can you hear my clock bonging? And I'm going to go in with this orangey or yellow to make it more golden-like. That went a little too orange. Back to the yellow. And again, we're testing. That's pretty, just needs more saturation. Okay, I like that better. All right, so with this tiny brush, I'm just going to go in and hit these really fast all the way around. They look a little orange, but I think when I hoover up that excess, you'll see that they're yellower. Yeah, I wanted them yellow enough to look different than the pumpkin. Of course, the pumpkin's going to get a little more zhuzhing. And this is turning out really cute. I know, you know, I usually know who I'm sending this to. I have a friend who we have a tradition of sending each other little cards. So she is the recipient of a lot of these. But I'll tell you, it will cheer up anybody's day to get a handmade card from someone. We just don't get those anymore. And it is a, you know, it's not going to change someone's life, but it can certainly make their life a little tiny bit better to know they've been thought of. Even if it's just to say, hey, I miss you, or just want to say hi, hope you're doing well. It doesn't have to be a 20-page letter. Just, it's nice to be thought of. Okay, so now all of a sudden we are like into autumnalville. Now, I'm going to add a little more of the redder orange because I want a little bit of just the tiniest bit of dimension around the edge of these. So I'm just going right at the edge. I will come in and suck that up just to give it just the tiniest amount of, we're not trying to be super literal here. Obviously, if you're trying to be super literal, you're on the wrong channel. Okay. Oh my gosh, that is so cute. It's subtle. I may have been a little fast on that, but it's still, it just adds a little something. And then we are going to go in and I'm looking for a little more intensity in the brown. So once that dries, we're going to do that. And this is what I mean. We're kind of doing this back and forth between the colors. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my bigger brush and I'm going to go in and really mix up a lot more intensity of this redder orange because I want to go in and see if I can get kind of a shadow going. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to beef it up even more, I'm going to go to the orangey or red and the warmer red and get, I want like a tomato soup color. Have you noticed that I often reference my colors by food? You know, I'm always going for my grape Kool-Aid purple. Okay, so I am happy with that. I think we've got a good enough contrast to the original orange, and if not, we'll just add more. And I'm just going to hit it like right on the edge there, just with a confident stroke, and then one on the bottom. And let's do a little bit under the paws. There, you saw how quick that is. Don't labor over it. As I command you, do not labor. As she labors over it. And you can suck up a little extra of that, but I want that to have a pretty good presence. Okay, I'm very happy with that. Let's go in. I think the yellow is dry enough. No, let's be patient. I'll be back. I'm going to let this completely dry, and then I'm coming back. Okay, I'm coming back to the brown now. So I'm going to go in into that brown that we started with, and I'm gonna make that pretty intense because I want to make sure that that reads like a sunflower. Yeah, I don't love that. There's something, it's too blue or something. I can't quite get my brain around why I don't love that brown. Let's, for the sake of color, let's see what it looks like. You know, we're gonna mix this up. If it doesn't look good, we're moving on. This is a blue that's, it's kind of like a phthalo, oops, wrong thing. It's a bit of a phthalo blue, and usually, you know, if we add a little blue to the brown, it kind of, oh, okay. Well, let's mix up more of that. Maybe I need to move to it. Yeah, I kind of like that. I added just a tiny bit of what's close to like a phthalo blue, kind of a bluer green, and it gave it a little more presence. So we're going to come in and just, yes, okay. Now Ronnie's happy. Okay, that is a huge blob on there. But let's go in. Yes. That reads totally more autumnal. That's what we are after. So just adding a titch of that blue, and it's a nice contrast to the yellow. Now I feel very sunflowery. Okay. And just test it on your paper. If you don't like it, mix a little more of something else. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We get to decide. We are controlling our watercolor destiny here. All right. Okay, that's really cute. Now the final thing I'm going to do is potentially ruin the whole shebang. Do you know how we're going to do that? We're going to put a little pale blue wash around this. Not the entire piece of paper, just a little bit of something going around the edge. And this is where you got to be brave. And if we can't be brave, well, we'll just be what we are. Okay. Let's, I'm grabbing another piece of paper just because I want to make sure. Now I want my big well here, so I'm going to get rid of my orange. Make sure that's nice and clean. And I'm not sure which blue I'm going to use. There are two blues in here. I may do a little mixture of them. This is this. It's kind of a, oh, I thought I was grabbing the phthalo in that brown. This is more the aquamarine. Why do I keep saying aquamarine? It's ultramarine. So that's, it's probably more of a cobalt blue, which is pretty. That's too dark, but, and then our other blue is the one that's more of a phthalo. All right, which one do we like? Well, you can't vote, but I'm thinking this one, and we're going to transition into that one because I'm feeling brave. Carefree, you know. Now, I'm going to need a bunch of this. So I am going to make sure I have a nice puddle of each of these. And I'm going in. And they're going to transition together. So I don't have to make a decision. Okay, I'm going. All right, so I'm going to start with the lighter of the, or the more, that's one that's more like a phthalo. And what I'm going to do is try not to get my hand. I'm just going to start it about here. I'm just going to And we're just going to do a little, just make it loose around the edge. And I'm going to come over here. If I weren't trying to show you my palette, I'd give myself a little more room in the hand. I'm going to come in here. I'm making sure these are wet. I'm moving them both at the same time. Cleaning the brush and coming back to the other blue. And we're just going to, that doesn't have enough intensity. And come in pretty quickly. Kind of have to work both angles here. And then we're just going to come in and kind of let it drift off the edge. You're moving quickly. I'm just going to give it kind of an edge. I don't think we ruined it. The good news is I don't think we ruined it. Okay. I think that really set her off. What do you guys think? You think that, did we ruin it or did we make it cuter? I like kind of this rough edge. I'm going to try to do that over here. Sometimes the rough edge is it just happens. And I don't want to push that. Okay, I think that's really cute. The one thing I am going to do when this dries is I'm going to intensify that gray, but I can't touch it now because it's over there. And when this gets a little more dry, I'm just going to hit it just with a little more strength, the blue, to make it look like it's sitting on something. The pumpkin, I mean. So I'm just going to give it a little extra something on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to clean this little well out. And you might have an auxiliary palette that you're going to mix things in. Just make sure when you have another palette or you use a plate, make sure it's white. I was going to buy I wanted a little travel palette, and I brought it, I actually bought it, and I brought it home, and I'm like, well, this is gray. This is really not going to show me my exact color when I'm looking at it, especially if I'm out doing, outdoor sketching or, painting. I want to know what color it is. So I returned it and got one that has white. So I don't know why they would make it gray. They don't consult me on these things. Okay, so I'm going to go in and make that a little more intense, just to give that cat some presence. Yeah, that's dark enough. Okay, I'm moving that out of the way because I'm going to be needing my hand here. So I'm just going in right in that same space, and so I need concentration. Can't necessarily talk while I'm concentrating. Just talk amongst yourselves for a moment while I do this. And here we go. Yeah, I like that better. That looks good. Sometimes you just, contrast can make or break a little painting. So make sure, otherwise they look really flat. So make sure you go in there and make sure, squint your eyes or make sure that there's some contrast. That's why we want to put something underneath the pumpkin. Oh, this is so cute, you guys. Okay. I think this is dry enough, yes. Some people say that if you touch it and it feels cold, it's still wet. But I don't like to touch things too much because I don't know, what if it's really wet? Okay, so these are dry, so now I'm going to go in. I think I'm going to use the color that I used on the bottom. Give it more intensity. That's a lot. And I'm going to cheat and put a little tiny bit of black in there just to gray that down a little bit and make sure, yes, that's enough contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and just hit that and drag it out just slightly behind there. Maybe a little something over here so you know that it's sitting on the ground. Okay. I think we done good. Maybe that was a little intense, so I can go in and hoover that up a little bit. Well, I think we have it. You know what? All right. Potential ruination. I'm just going to drag that all the way down. There. Oh, okay. This is really cute. This is really cute. I am quite happy with this. I hope you're happy with yours. Yours is going to be different than mine. But I think this turned out just darling. Okay. Well, there you go. Another cat in the bag. And I think this turned out really cute. I think you could do this. You could personalize it with someone's cat that actually looks like their cat in there. And we're going to intensify that nose a little bit. Just that part. Just the little tweaks. Well, okay. Well, I'm calling that a painting. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Again, be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Okay? Take care. Bye.